The night was quiet and slow, and the road looked empty as a single dad walked beside his young daughter after a long day. They were heading home after finishing small jobs around the town. The father carried a worn bag on his shoulder, and the child walked close to him, holding his hand tightly. The air felt heavy, and the street lights flickered softly. The daughter was tired but still alert, looking around as she often did when they walked together. The father had learned to live carefully since raising his child alone. Life had taught him to stay alert and avoid trouble. He worked hard each day, doing simple work just to keep food on the table. He never complained in front of his daughter. He wanted her to feel safe and hopeful, even when things were not easy. As they walked past an old bus stop, the daughter suddenly slowed her steps. She tugged at her father's hand and pointed ahead. There was a figure lying near the curb. The body barely moved and looked weak and thin. The father first thought it was someone sleeping. He looked around and noticed no one else nearby. Cars passed now and then, but none slowed down. The daughter whispered that something felt wrong. Her voice was soft but serious. She had always been sensitive to people feelings. The father hesitated, his mind filled with worry. He thought about danger, about scams, about getting involved in problems he could not afford. He looked at the road again and told himself they should keep walking. They took a few more steps. But the daughter stopped again. She refused to move. Her eyes stayed fixed on the stranger. She said the person was not sleeping. She said she felt scared for him. The father sighed deeply. He looked at her face and saw concern, not fear. He felt a quiet pull in his chest. He decided to walk closer just to check from a distance. He could now see the stranger was an older man. His clothes were dirty and torn. His face looked pale and drawn. His chest rose slowly, as if each breath was hard work. The father crouched down and called out softly, but the man did not respond. The daughter knelt beside her father. She held her breath as she watched. The man's eyes fluttered open for a moment, then closed again. His lips moved, but no sound came out. The father felt his heart beat faster. He realized this was serious. This man was not just resting. He was very sick. The father looked around again, hoping someone else might step in. A shop across the road was closed. The street felt empty and cold. He thought about calling for help, but worried about cost and delay. He also thought about walking away and pretending he never saw anything. That thought made his chest feel tight. The daughter reached out and touched the man's hand gently, her small fingers wrapped around his cold skin. She spoke softly, telling him he was not alone. The man reacted slightly, squeezing her hand weakly.
Ow.
Tears filled the father's eyes at that moment. He took out his phone and called for emergency help. His voice shook as he explained the situation. The operator asked him to stay with the man and keep him warm until help arrived. The father removed his jacket and covered the stranger's shoulders. He stayed close, watching every breath. The daughter stayed calm. She talked to the man about simple things like the stars and the walk home. She did not know if he could hear her, but she kept speaking anyway. Her voice seemed to bring a small peace to the moment. The father noticed people passing at a distance. Some slowed to look, but none stopped. He felt a mix of anger and understanding. Everyone had their reasons. He focused on the man in front of him instead. Time moved slowly. Each minute felt heavy. The man opened his eyes again and whispered a few broken words. He said he thought he would die alone. The father told him he was safe now. The daughter nodded and smiled gently, even though her eyes were wet. Sirens could be heard far away, growing closer. The father felt relief, but also fear. He hoped they were not too late. He held the man's shoulder steady and kept talking to him, encouraging him to stay awake. As the ambulance lights appeared, the daughter squeezed her father's hand. She felt proud and scared at the same time. She had never seen someone so close to death before. But she knew they did the right thing. The medics arrived quickly and took over. They were surprised to see a child sitting so calmly beside a dying stranger. They asked questions and began treatment right away. One of them nodded at the father with respect as the man was lifted onto the stretcher. His eyes met the daughter. Once more he whispered a thank you so faint it was almost lost. The daughter waved softly and told him to get better. The ambulance drove away, leaving the street quiet again. The father and daughter stood still for a moment, processing what just happened. The father hugged his child tightly, feeling grateful and shaken. Connuent. Their walk home in silence, both knew that something important had happened that night. Something that would stay with them forever. Even though they did not know what the future held, they understood that kindness had already changed a life. The road no longer felt empty, it felt full of meaning. The next morning came slowly for the single. Dad and his daughter, neither of them slept well. The images of the night before kept returning in quiet flashes, the weak hand, the tired eyes. The sound of sirens fading away when the sun rose. The father was already awake, sitting near the window. Thinking, he watched his daughter sleeping peacefully. Her face looked calm, but he knew her mind had been busy too. She was young, yet she understood more than many adults. The father felt a mix of pride and worry. He wondered if he had exposed her to something too heavy for her age, but deep inside, he also knew she had learned something important. When she woke up, the first thing she asked was about the old man. She wanted to know if he was alive. The father admitted he did not know he had no information beyond the ambulance ride. He told her they did what they could. She nodded, but her eyes showed she hoped for more. They went through their usual morning routine. The father prepared simple food while the daughter helped in small ways. The house felt quieter than usual, as if the walls were listening. Their life was simple, but steady. Every day followed a pattern of work, school chores, and rest. Yet today felt different. As they stepped outside, the father noticed neighbors talking about the incident. Word had spread faster than he expected. Some people praised him while others questioned why he stopped at all. He listened without responding. He did not feel like explaining himself. He believed some things did not need defense. Daughter walked beside him, holding his hand again. She looked up and asked why others did not help the man. The father paused before answering. He said, "Some people are scared, some are tired, some have been hurt." Before he explained that fear often stops kindness. She listened carefully and said she hoped she would never stop helping later. That day, while the father worked small jobs around town, his thoughts kept drifting back to the stranger. He wondered where the man had come from and how long he had been alone. He thought about how easily a life could fade without notice. The thought stayed with him like a quiet weight. In the afternoon, the daughter returned from school, unusually quiet. Her teacher had mentioned she seemed distracted. When the father asked her, she admitted she kept thinking about the old man. She said she felt like part of her heart was still sitting on that cold street. That evening, they sat together and talked openly. The father encouraged her to share everything. She said she was scared, but also happy. She felt scared because she saw how close someone could be to dying. But she felt happy because they did not walk away. The father told her he felt the same. As night fell, the father made a decision. He felt a strong need to know what happened to the man he knew. Hospitals were busy and information was limited, but he felt he had to try. The next morning, he planned to visit the local hospital and asked. The following day, he left his daughter with a trusted neighbor and went to the hospital. The building smelled of disinfectant and quiet tension. He spoke to the front desk and explained the situation. He did not give names, only details. He expected nothing at first. The staff said they could not share information, but one nurse paused and looked at him closely. She asked if he was the man with the child who stayed that night. When he nodded, her expression softened. She told him the stranger was alive but still very weak. She said his condition had stabilized after arrival. The father felt his legs weaken with relief. He thanked her quietly. He asked if they could visit. She hesitated, then said she would ask. The father waited nervously, feeling hope and fear mixing in his chest. After a short wait, the nurse returned and allowed a brief visit. She reminded him to stay calm and keep the visit short. The father agreed and followed her down a long hallway. When he entered the room, he barely recognized the man. Machines surrounded the bed. Tubes and monitors showed slow, steady signs of life. The man's eyes were closed, but his face looked less tense. The father stood quietly, unsure what to say. He spoke softly, telling the man he was not alone and that his daughter asked about him. The man's eyelids fluttered and slowly opened. He looked confused, then recognition filled his eyes. Tears rolled down his cheeks. He whispered words of thanks and relief. The father told him they were glad he survived. He said his daughter would be happy to know. The man squeezed his hand weakly. The moment felt fragile and real. Before leaving, the father asked the nurse if his daughter could visit another day. She nodded and said it might help the man's spirit. The father left the hospital feeling lighter than he had in days. When he told his daughter the news, her face lit up with joy. She smiled and hugged him tightly. She said she wanted to bring the man something small to make him feel less alone. That night, the father watched his daughter draw a simple picture meant for the old man. It showed two people standing together under a bright sky. The father felt tears in his eyes once more. He realized then that the choice they made on that quiet street had already changed them. Both father and daughter had grown in a way money or comfort could never teach. Outside, the night air felt calmer. The road no longer seemed like just a path home. It felt like a place where choices mattered, where hearts were tested and kindness found its way forward. The days that followed the visit to the hospital passed slowly. For the single dad and his daughter, every moment seemed to bring thoughts of the man they had helped. The father worked his usual jobs but often found his mind drifting back to the stranger. He wondered how someone could live so close to danger and fear without anyone noticing. The daughter continued school, but her thoughts returned often to the man she had held hands with. And spoken to softly one afternoon after school, she asked if they could visit the hospital again. The father agreed, but he reminded her to be patient and calm. They planned carefully and took a small gift along, a simple card drawn by the daughter. With bright colors and friendly shapes, it was not much, but it carried a message of hope and companionship. The hospital smelled the same as before, clean and busy. The father guided his daughter through the corridors until they reached the room. The man looked smaller, lying in the bed connected to machines. Yet his eyes lit up when he saw them. The daughter walked slowly and held out the card. The man took it carefully with one weak hand. He looked at the colors and shapes, and a small smile formed on his lips. He began to talk slowly. At first his voice was faint and broken, but full of emotion. He told them fragments of his story, how he had been living alone for months without much help, how he felt abandoned by the world and afraid of dying unseen. He admitted he had almost given up hope, until that night the father listened quietly and held his hand. The daughter stood close and spoke softly, encouraging words. The man shared memories of his life, small moments that meant something to him. He spoke about a time he had helped a stranger many years ago. He said he had thought it was not important. Now he realized that simple acts could change lives completely. He thanked the father and daughter repeatedly, saying he would never forget their kindness. The daughter felt her heart swell. She did not fully understand all his words, but she understood the feeling of gratitude and hope. The father asked gentle questions, letting the man talk without rushing. He wanted to know more about his fears and his regrets. The man confessed he had been bitter for a long time, feeling disconnected and alone, but seeing the father and daughter stay with him had made him feel alive again. He said he had thought his life was over, yet he was still here to make choices. Days turned into weeks as they visited him often. The visits were short but meaningful. The daughter would draw pictures or tell simple stories, while the father listened to the man share memories. The man started to open up more each day. His voice grew stronger and his eyes brighter. The nurses noticed the change and often mentioned it. He was becoming more responsive and hopeful because someone had chosen to care. One afternoon, the man mentioned wanting to do something for others. He said he had learned the power of small acts of kindness and wanted to repay the world in some way. The father nodded encouragingly. He said that even small gestures could make a difference. The daughter smiled and said she already felt proud because they had helped him survive and feel safe. The father started reflecting on his own life too. He realized that helping the stranger had reminded him of the goodness that still existed. The world could be harsh and unfair, but moments of connection and care were what gave life meaning. The daughter felt the same. She was learning lessons about courage and compassion that no school could teach. The man began to recount stories of people he had known long ago and the mistakes he had made. He spoke with honesty and reflection. His voice was steady, and the father listened without judgment. Each story carried a lesson. The daughter listened carefully, sometimes asking questions that made the man pause and think. They began to notice changes in him beyond the medical reports. His attitude toward life shifted. He expressed gratitude for every small thing, started planning to reconnect with estranged family members. He spoke about wanting to help people around him once he recovered fully. He said the night they found him had been a turning point. Evenings became moments of reflection for the father and daughter. They would talk about the visit on the way home. She often asked if the man remembered their words. The father would tell her he did, and that it mattered more than she could imagine. They realized that simple acts of kindness had ripple effects reaching farther than they could see. One afternoon, the daughter asked why some people ignored others in need. The father explained that fear and worry sometimes made people look away, but But he told her that courage was not the absence of fear, it was choosing to act. Despite it, the daughter nodded. She felt that she had learned something important. About life and about herself, the man started to write small notes of gratitude for the father and daughter. He kept them in a small box by his bed. They were simple messages, thanking them for their presence and care. Each note carried warmth and sincerity. The daughter would read them quietly, feeling proud that their small gestures mattered so much. The bond between the three grew stronger. Each visit felt like a shared journey. They laughed softly at small stories shared by the man, and sometimes cried together over memories and regrets. The father realized that they were not just helping the stranger, he was also teaching his daughter empathy and understanding that would shape her forever. As weeks passed, the man began to talk about the future. He said he wanted to do small acts of kindness to repay the gift of life he had received. He spoke about volunteering and connecting with people who were lonely. He said he could not change the past, but he could make the future brighter. He thanked them again for showing him that life could still be meaningful. The father and daughter returned home that night feeling a sense of fulfillment. They knew that their actions had not only saved a life, but had also brought hope and change. To someone who felt forgotten, the daughter held her father's hand and whispered that she wanted to always help people in need. The father smiled inside, feeling proud and grateful outside. The night was calm and clear. The father and daughter walked home reflecting on the power of compassion and the importance of courage. They understood that even small gestures could change lives in ways no one could predict, and they knew that the stranger they had helped was now more than just someone they had saved. He had become a part of their journey, and theirs had become a part of his weeks past. And the single dad and his daughter continued their visits to the hospital. The stranger was growing stronger each day. His voice became more steady, and his movements more confident. He greeted them with warmth and a small smile every time. They brought small things with them, a card, a drawing, or a story. Each gesture reminded him that he was not alone. The father noticed changes not only in the man but in his daughter too. She seemed more thoughtful and kind. She spoke gently to others and often reminded her father to notice when someone might need help. They discussed life lessons together, and the daughter shared small acts she had done for friends and neighbors. The father felt proud that she was learning about empathy and courage. The stranger began to tell more about his past. He spoke of mistakes and regrets, of lost opportunities and relationships. He admitted he had been bitter and lonely. He said he had almost given up on life entirely, but that night he had learned the value of simple kindness. The father listened without judgment. He realized that everyone had a story and that listening could heal as much as action. One day the man asked the father and daughter to help him with something. He wanted to reconnect with a distant family member. He admitted he was nervous and unsure of what to say. The father encouraged him. He reminded the man that taking the first step was important and that honesty would help. The daughter nodded in agreement, saying that it was brave to try. They sat together, planning what the man would say. He wrote down simple words explaining his feelings and hopes. He asked for forgiveness and offered love. The father helped with the wording, and the daughter suggested he include a small drawing to show care. The man smiled and said he had never thought he would have helped like this. When the day came for him to contact the family, the father and daughter waited quietly. He made a phone call and spoke softly. He shared his feelings and apologized for the past. The father watched closely, seeing the fear and hope in his eyes. After a long conversation, the man hung up. He looked relieved, and emotional tears ran down his cheeks. The daughter hugged him and said it would be okay. After reconnecting with his family, the man felt a new sense of purpose. He said he wanted to make small changes in his life and help others who felt alone. The father suggested he start by volunteering at a local center. The man agreed and said he had been afraid to leave the hospital, but now he felt ready. The daughter said she wanted to help too. The man smiled gratefully. Visits continued at the hospital, but now they focused on planning the future. The man discussed ways to use his experience to encourage kindness in others. He shared stories with the father and daughter about the lessons he had learned. The father realized that they were all growing together in understanding and compassion. The daughter often suggested creative ways to show care, like drawing pictures or writing letters to strangers. The stranger began to show confidence in small daily tasks. Walking in the hallway and speaking with nurses and other patients, He began to smile more and laugh softly at small jokes. The father noticed that the hospital staff treated him differently now, noticing his determination and positive attitude. The daughter often chatted with the nurses, and they admired her calm presence and courage. One evening, the father and daughter brought a small plant to the hospital. They placed it near the bed as a symbol of growth and hope. The man touched it gently and smiled. He said it reminded him of how he had been nurtured back to life by their care and attention. He said every small action had made a difference. The daughter nodded, saying that even tiny things could grow into something meaningful. Father reflected on how a single act of kindness could change so much. He remembered the night they found the man and realized that moment had created ripples far beyond what they could see. He also saw the change in his daughter and felt proud that she was learning the importance of courage, empathy, and action. The man began to share plans for the day after his release. He wanted to visit the center, where he could meet lonely people. He wanted to offer help to those who felt abandoned. He spoke about being careful but brave about making connections. The father encouraged him to take it slowly and steadily. The daughter offered to help him make cards and small gifts to take along as the days went by. The man grew stronger and more hopeful. Each visit was filled with planning small actions that could bring comfort to others. He thanked the father and daughter, repeatedly saying he could not imagine how he would have survived without their support. They smiled quietly, knowing they had only offered presence and care, yet it had meant the world. One afternoon, he said he wanted to meet some people who had helped him indirectly by showing kindness in the past. He spoke of neighbors who had once smiled or spoken to him when he felt invisible. The father nodded, saying that every gesture mattered, even if it seemed small at the time. The daughter said she wanted to continue learning about helping people wherever she could. Man also began reflecting on the lessons for himself. He said he understood that life was fragile and that every choice mattered. He wanted to leave a mark not through wealth or power, but through actions that reminded others of hope and kindness. The father realized that his daughter was absorbing these lessons and carrying them forward into her own life. The hospital visits became less about fear and more about planning and hope. They spoke about the future and what they could do together to make lives better. The man smiled and said he never expected that a single night on the street could lead to so much growth and learning. The daughter nodded quietly, understanding that even small acts could create lasting change. At the end of each visit, they walked home slowly, thinking about the difference one night had made. They spoke of courage, compassion, and hope, and the father realized that life had taught them all a profound lesson. They knew that kindness was not just about helping in the moment, but about creating ripples that changed lives forever. The day finally came when the stranger was ready to leave the hospital. He walked slowly with support, but his eyes were bright and determined. He thanked the nurses and staff who had cared for him along the way. He thanked the father and daughter repeatedly, saying he felt he had been given a second chance at life. They smiled quietly, feeling proud but humble, knowing it was the small act of being present that had changed everything. The father helped him get ready, and they walked together. Outside, the air felt fresher and warmer than it had before. The daughter skipped beside them, holding a small basket with drawings and cards. The stranger looked at the colors and shapes and smiled. He said it reminded him of hope and the kindness that had saved him. They went to a small community center where the stranger planned to volunteer. He was nervous about meeting new people, but the father encouraged him, said taking small steps was the key. The daughter offered to help him organize simple activities and make everyone feel welcome. The stranger agreed, saying he wanted to share the care he had received with others. The first day at the center was quiet and slow, but meaningful. The stranger spoke to people who had felt alone and listened to their stories. He offered small words of encouragement and gentle attention. The father watched from a distance, feeling proud. The daughter handed out drawings and cards to people who looked sad and lonely. Her eyes sparkled with the same compassion that had guided her the night they found the man. Stranger began writing small notes to others, sharing his experience and reminding them that help and kindness were always possible. He told people how a single act of care had changed his life. He spoke with honesty and humility, and the people around him listened with open hearts. Days turned into weeks, and the father and daughter visited often. They brought new stories to share and listened to the stranger recount experiences helping people. He spoke about the joy he felt seeing smiles and hearing laughter. He said he understood the value of life more deeply and the importance of being present for others. The daughter started making small plans with the stranger. For creative projects, they made cards and drawings together to give to people in hospitals and centers. She felt proud that her simple ideas could bring happiness to someone else. The father encouraged her and reminded her that even the smallest gestures could ripple out to touch many lives. The stranger began to reconnect with more people in his life. He met with distant relatives and shared his story. He apologized for past mistakes and offered love and understanding. He found forgiveness and acceptance that he had not expected. He said he felt lighter and more alive than he had in years. Evenings came a time for reflection for the father and daughter. They would talk about the day and what they had learned about courage, compassion, and the impact of small acts. They discussed how life could be fragile and how choices mattered every day. They realized that the night it found the stranger had created lessons they would carry forever. The stranger continued to grow stronger and more confident. He took small steps in volunteering and helping people. He shared stories of hope and resilience. He told the father and daughter that he wanted to live a life that gave back to others. He said he would never forget the night they found him, and the care they showed. The father noticed changes in his daughter too. She had grown in maturity and understanding. She spoke with calm and confidence and often reminded others to notice when someone might need help. She seemed to understand deeply that kindness was more powerful than words or money. The stranger began organizing small gatherings for people who felt lonely or forgotten. He shared stories, drawings, and letters that inspired courage and hope. The father and daughter helped him with preparations and participated in activities. The community responded with warmth and gratitude. One afternoon, the stranger said he wanted to give something back to the father and daughter. He brought a small gift, a handmade book filled with notes and drawings from people whose lives had been touched by his kindness. He thanked them again, saying that without their presence and care, he would not have learned to believe in hope and generosity. The father and daughter were touched deeply. They realized that the gift was not just about objects, but about the ripple effect of compassion. The daughter smiled and said she wanted to continue helping people wherever she could. The father nodded, feeling proud and grateful for the lessons life had taught them. All days became months, and the stranger fully reintegrated into his life. He continued helping others and spreading messages of hope and kindness. He often visited the father and daughter, sharing stories of people he had helped. He said every day was an opportunity to show care and make a difference. The father and daughter understood that their simple choice to stop and help a stranger on a quiet night had created waves of change far beyond what they could have imagined. They had not only saved a life, but had helped build a community of compassion and understanding. Evenings were filled with quiet reflection. They often talked about the stranger and the people they had helped together. They realized that life was fragile, and every act of care mattered. They knew that courage, empathy, and presence were gifts that could change the world one person at a time. The father and daughter walked home one evening, reflecting on the journey. They held hands and felt a sense of peace. They knew that the night they found the stranger had been the beginning of something bigger than themselves. They understood that kindness was a choice that could ripple outward endlessly, and that even small actions could surprise everyone. And change lives forever. Months had passed since the stranger had left the hospital and returned to a life filled with purpose. The father and daughter continued to visit and support him. They had grown close, and their bond had strengthened. Through shared experiences, they laughed together, shared small meals, and talked about dreams, hopes, and lessons learned from the past. The stranger had become an active member of the community. He volunteered at the center, helped organize events, and supported people who were lonely or struggling. He spoke openly about the night the father and daughter had saved him. He said their kindness had shown him that even in the darkest moments, life could offer hope. He wanted others to understand that courage and compassion were powerful tools that could change the world. The father noticed how much his daughter had grown. Confident and empathetic, she noticed when someone needed help and offered small gestures to make them feel valued. She often shared stories with the stranger about her day at school and how she tried to help classmates and neighbors. He listened with interest and encouraged her to continue learning about kindness and understanding. One afternoon, the stranger asked the father and daughter to join him on a project. He wanted to create a small space in the community center where people could share their stories and support each other. He said, It could be a place for those who felt invisible to feel seen and heard. The father and daughter agreed, and they worked together to plan the space. They gathered materials, painted walls, decorated with drawings, and created small shelves filled with books and cards. The daughter added her colorful drawings to make the space feel welcoming. The stranger spoke to the people who visited, explaining that every person had value and that sharing feelings could bring comfort and understanding. Over time, the space became popular. People who had been alone for long periods came to share their stories and listen to others. They found encouragement and hope in the words and actions of those around them. The father and daughter watched with pride as the stranger guided people with patience and care. They realized that their small act of kindness had grown into something much bigger than they could have imagined. The stranger began to invite more people to participate in activities and events. He encouraged them to help others in simple ways, like offering a kind word or a small gesture of support. The father and daughter joined in organizing events and teaching lessons about empathy and courage. They saw the impact of their combined efforts in the smiles and gratitude of the community. The daughter started a small project of her own. She wanted to create a collection of drawings and letters that could be shared with people in hospitals and centers. She explained her ideas to the stranger, who supported her and encouraged her to include the father in her plans. The father helped by preparing simple supplies and coordinating the collection and distribution of the letters and drawings. As the weeks passed, the space in the community center became a hub of hope and kindness. People who had once felt isolated now felt connected. The stranger shared stories about his journey from despair to hope and emphasized the importance of helping others and taking courageous steps. Even when afraid, the father and daughter often reflected on how much they had learned from him and from the experiences they had shared. The stranger continued to grow stronger and more confident. He began visiting other communities, sharing his story and the lessons he had learned. He spoke about the father and daughter who had stopped to help him that night. He said their actions had given him a second chance and that he wanted to help others experience the same kind of care and hope. The father realized that the lessons of courage and compassion were spreading beyond their immediate circle. He felt proud that his daughter was learning firsthand how one small act could have long-lasting effects. They've discussed ways to continue supporting the stranger and the community and to encourage others to act with kindness and understanding. One day, the stranger invited local children to the space. He wanted them to learn about empathy and courage at an early age. The daughter helped teach the children about small acts of kindness and listening to others. She shared stories of their journey with the stranger and the importance of helping people in need. The children responded with enthusiasm and curiosity. They created drawings and notes to share with people who needed comfort and support. The father and daughter often reflected on the journey that had started on a quiet street months ago. They remembered the fear the stranger had felt and the courage they had needed to show up and help. They realized that their actions had created a ripple effect, changing not just one life, but many lives in ways they could not have imagined. As months turned into a year, the community center space continued to flourish. The stranger organized workshops and events to teach people how to be more compassionate and courageous. He worked with the father and daughter to expand the reach of their efforts. They began connecting with nearby neighborhoods and encouraging others to create similar spaces. The father noticed a change in himself as well. He felt a renewed sense of purpose and fulfillment. He realized that helping someone in need had not only changed the stranger's life, but had changed his own and his daughter's lives as well. He felt grateful for the lessons of empathy, patience, and courage that had emerged from that one night. The daughter often spoke about her hopes for the future, why she wanted to continue helping people and creating spaces where kindness and hope could grow. She knew that even small gestures mattered, and that courage was often shown in the simple choice to act when someone needed help. The father encouraged her to pursue her dreams and assured her that her actions were making a difference. Stranger looked at the father and daughter one evening and said he could never thank them enough for the gift of life and hope they had given him. He said he had learned to see the beauty in every small act of kindness and that he wanted to dedicate his life to helping others experience the same transformation. He said that together they had built something meaningful that would last beyond their own experiences. The father and daughter felt a deep sense of fulfillment. They realized that the night they had chosen to help a stranger had created a journey of courage empathy and hope that had grown far beyond what they could have imagined. They understood that life could be fragile, but that every choice to act with care mattered, and that kindness could ripple through countless lives as they walked home together. That evening, the father held his daughter's hand and felt the quiet pride of knowing that their lives had changed. For the better, they reflected on the power of compassion and the importance of taking action when someone needed help. They knew that the stranger's journey had become their journey, and that together they had created a story of hope. Human connection that would continue to grow and inspire others. Stranger's life had become full of purpose, and the father and daughter continued to be a part of it. Every visit brought new ideas, new plans, and new experiences they had built. A rhythm of support and learning that extended beyond the hospital and community center. Their relationship had grown stronger and deeper as they shared hopes and struggles and discovered lessons in empathy, courage, and human connection. The father often marveled at the changes in his daughter. She had grown into a thoughtful and caring young person. She noticed when people were in need and offered small acts of kindness to help them. She shared stories of classmates and neighbors who had been lonely or struggling, and often suggested simple ways to make them feel valued. The stranger encouraged her to keep learning and to take every opportunity to practice compassion. Encouraged the stranger, continued to expand his work in the community. He organized workshops for people of all ages, teaching them how to offer help to those who felt invisible. He emphasized the importance of listening carefully, noticing small signs of need, and acting with courage even when afraid. He shared his own story as an example of how a single act of kindness could change a life and create a ripple effect of hope. Father and daughter helped with these workshops. They guided activities, shared their own experiences, and encouraged participants to engage in small acts of care. They saw the impact of their efforts and the smiles of participants and the expressions of gratitude that were offered freely. They realized that their influence was growing beyond themselves and that they were helping to foster a culture of empathy in the community. One day, the stranger suggested creating a mentorship program for young people in the area. He wanted to teach them how to recognize opportunities to help others and how to act with courage. The father and daughter agreed and began planning how they could involve local schools and youth organizations. They discussed methods for teaching empathy through practical activities and storytelling. They began visiting schools and community centers, sharing stories and activities designed to help young people understand the importance of kindness and bravery. The stranger shared his experiences of being alone and in need and explained how a single act of compassion had transformed his life. The father shared examples of helping others and the lessons he had learned. And the daughter shared simple ways that young people could make a difference in everyday life. The response was overwhelming. Children and teenagers responded with enthusiasm and curiosity. They shared stories of helping friends and family and discussed ways to help others in their neighborhoods. They created drawings and notes to distribute to people in hospitals and shelters, and the father and daughter helped organize these projects and guide the young people through the process. As the months passed, the mentorship program grew and became an important part of the community. The stranger continued to share his story and guide participants in understanding empathy, courage, and the power of small acts of kindness. The father and daughter continued to participate and contribute. Their involvement inspired others to take action and to create their own programs and initiatives to support people in need. Father often reflected on the journey that had started months ago on a quiet street. When they had found the stranger, he remembered the fear he had felt and the courage it had taken to stop and help. He realized that their actions had created a ripple effect, changing not only the stranger's life, but also the lives of countless others in the community. The daughter continued to develop her own projects. She created collections of drawings, notes, and small gifts to distribute to people in hospitals, shelters, and community centers. She worked with the stranger and her father to plan the distribution and ensure that the recipients felt valued and appreciated. She learned firsthand that even small gestures could have a profound impact on someone's life, and that courage and kindness often came together in surprising ways. The stranger began hosting regular meetings at the community center for people who had experienced loneliness or hardship. He encouraged them to share their stories and offer support to one another. He emphasized the importance of listening and understanding, and the father and daughter often participated, helping to facilitate conversations and activities. The space became a hub of hope and community connection. The father noticed that he too had grown through these experiences. He felt a renewed sense of purpose and fulfillment in helping the stranger. In supporting the community, he realized that the lessons he had learned about empathy, courage, and compassion were transforming his own life and teaching his daughter valuable lessons that would shape her character and future choices. The daughter began documenting their experiences. She wrote notes and kept journals about the people they had helped, the projects they had participated in, and the lessons they had learned. She shared these writings with the stranger, who encouraged her to continue expressing herself and to use her experiences to inspire others. The father helped her organize the notes into a collection that could be shared with the community. The stranger also began reaching out to neighboring communities. He shared his story and the lessons he had learned about kindness, courage, and the power of small acts. He collaborated with local leaders and organizations to create similar programs and spaces where people could support each other and build connections. The father and daughter often accompanied him on these visits, helping to plan and organize activities. As the years passed, the father and daughter saw the long-term impact of their actions. The mentorship programs and community spaces continued to grow, and the stranger continued to guide and inspire people with his story. He emphasized that every individual had the ability to make a difference, and that even small acts of kindness could ripple outwards to touch many lives. The father reflected on how a single night on a quiet street had set in motion a journey of growth, learning, and transformation for all of them. He realized that courage and empathy were not abstract concepts, but practical tools that could change lives when applied with care and attention. The daughter understood that kindness and bravery were habits that could be cultivated through action and reflection, and that her choices could impact people far beyond what she could see. The stranger continued to host workshops and events, bringing together people of all ages. He encouraged collaboration and creativity. He facilitated conversations and activities designed to build understanding, compassion, and courage. The father and daughter participated in these events, helping to guide participants and share their own experiences. The community began to see lasting change in attitudes and behaviors. The daughter started mentoring younger children, showing them how to recognize when someone needed help and how to act with care. She shared her own experiences and the stories of the stranger and her father. She emphasized that even small gestures mattered, and that courage often meant simply showing up and being present for someone who needed support. The father and daughter also continued to learn from the stranger. He shared reflections about life, the power of connection, and the importance of paying attention to others. The father realized that their journey together had created a foundation of empathy and courage that would continue to grow and influence future generations. The daughter understood that her actions could inspire change and that her choices mattered. Stranger began writing a book about his experiences and the lessons he had learned. He included stories of the father and daughter and their courage and kindness. He wanted to share the message that even small acts could have a profound impact, and that empathy and care were essential for creating a better world. The father and daughter helped him with editing and organizing the material. The book was shared with the community and beyond, inspiring people to take action and to create spaces of support and kindness in their own neighborhoods. The father and daughter continued their work with the stranger, helping to organize workshops and mentorship programs. They saw the ongoing impact of their actions and the continued ripple effects of the original act of kindness. Through all of this, the bond between the father, the daughter, and the stranger grew stronger. They shared experiences, laughter, and reflection. They supported each other through challenges and celebrated successes together. They realized that the journey had changed all of them in profound ways, and that their connection had created lasting impact in the community. The father and daughter often reflected on the lessons learned. They understood that courage and empathy were practical skills that could be cultivated through action. They recognized that even small gestures of care could create profound change, and that paying attention to others could transform lives. The stranger emphasized that every person had the ability to create positive impact, and that kindness was contagious. The community continued to thrive with the programs and mentorship opportunities established by the stranger and supported by the father and daughter, the ripple effect of one act of kindness continued to reach new people, inspiring compassion, courage, and connection throughout the neighborhood and beyond. Father and daughter walked home one evening after another, successful workshop reflecting on the journey they held. Hansen felt the quiet fulfillment of knowing that their lives had been transformed by an act of care.
Oh.
They understood that their choices mattered and that kindness could surprise everyone and change lives forever. The stranger's journey had become theirs, and together they had created a legacy of hope, courage, and human connection that would continue to grow and inspire others for years to come.